Good evening, America. It is 7 p.m. Thursday, May 28, and this is Q News Tonight, the world's first live LGBTQ daily evening news. It is time to queer up the news.
Tonight we report that Trump announces executive order against social media companies.
Central Park Karen calls the police on a gay black man.
It's official. Same-gendered spouses gain equal access to the Social Security survivors' benefits nationwide.
Pastor Kent Butterfield's wife is thanking God for COVID because prides are being canceled.
Georgia faces mounting pressure from many businesses to enact hate crime law.
Malaysia's top court affirms the legal challenge to the Islamic ban on homosexuality.
Ruby Rose breaks silence after sudden Batwoman departure.
ACT UP's Larry Kramer, Normal Heart playwright, passed away at 84.
Study shows that LGBTQ inclusion in advertising benefits those brands.
Governments must urgently act to provide trans health care during coronavirus, according to science.
In Quarantine Quickies, we report coronavirus facts for today.
Plus, new studies show that COVID antibodies may only protect for 6 months before reinfection is possible.
We report a staggering 41 million Americans now unemployed, with 2.9 million of those being in the LGBTQ community.
In coronavirus good news, a 6-year-old's wish is granted by legendary skater Tony Hawk.
Tonight is America's top LGBTQ Q&A on coronavirus.
Then, on our fun big finish, Ellen gives her mom a butch buzz cut for her 90th birthday.
Trump's press secretary admits she has voted 11 times by mail. Okay, wait. Trump, is this fake news?
No Context Thursday means a straight man thinks the pandemic might have turned him gay.
Lansing, Michigan, gay sex club closed by police. Not because of illegal sex, but for violating social distancing rules. No way they're 6 feet apart.
The Queer Eye cast will appear on the celebrity edition of Family Feud, May 31st.
And happy 52nd birthday to gay icon Kylie Minogue. Good evening, America. It's 7 p.m. Thursday, May 28, 2020, and it's time to queer up the news. We are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. So many of your stories we are going to tell on Q News Tonight. Tonight on the world's first live daily queer evening news show.
Tonight's news about the gay community and the news from an LGBTQ perspective. Are our gay stories important to you? In headlines, politics, entertainment, gay culture, travel, religion, and more. Reported by respected anchors.
Out of the closet and into the headlines on Q News Tonight. Thank you for joining Q News Tonight. We are live, so anything can happen. This is a live show. Tonight we bring you the news of and a perspective from the LGBTQ community. I'm your anchor, Al Ferguson, and this is my co-guest anchor, Misty Eyes, and anchor Napoleon Plays. So let's cue up the news.
We are proud to share with you that our LGBTQ television network supports the unique live broadcast of Sunshine Cathedral's Sunday Church Service, the world's most popular LGBTQ queer religious broadcast. And we are proud of our diverse 501c3 and charitable support.
The Happening television network is now the largest live LGBTQ media platform on the planet.
With Q News Tonight, It's Happening Out, and Happening.Fun, our network is the most important live LGBTQ video website in the world. We have more traffic to our website than any live video LGBTQ website in the world.
We are prime digital TV partners with both YouTube TV and Facebook TV. And in April, more than 2.2 million watched our LGBTQ shows. We are the source for the LGBTQ community for news, talk shows, and entertainment.
Tonight we bring you Q Headlines. The LGBTQ community in America is diverse. The LGBTQ community around the world is vast. We bring you bullet points of the queer news for today, Thursday, May 28, 2020. Let's queer up the USA. Trump announces executive order against social media companies. In response of being chided on Twitter for spreading misinformation about mail-in ballot measures, President Trump today has issued an executive order against social media companies, including Facebook and Twitter. Multiple sources close to the president have said that this is a fight he craves, believing that he can paint the tech companies as running interference in his re-election bid, and it will drum up support in his already frenzied base. The draft of the initial executive order being prepared by Trump administration tests the boundaries of the White House's authority. In a long, short legal bid, it seeks to curtail the power of large social media platforms by reinterpreting a critical 1996 law that shields websites and tech companies from lawsuits.
The very last thing we need right now is Trump enacting another move of a dictator and taking control of social media. He's already seemingly tried to do so as a user, obviously with the POTUS account on Twitter and with other various platforms. So hopefully we don't see that happen moving forward, but it seems like that's the trajectory that he's going to take.
I hope somebody reminds him that he is not a king, he is not a czar, he is not North Korean, he is the United States of America president.
It is Thursday, May 28th, and President Trump has officially gone insane today. Our president is insane. That's it.
Queer up the USA. Central Park Karen calls the police on a gay black man. The woman, whose real name is Amy Cooper, has said that her life is being destroyed as she is forced to face the realities of falsely claiming that an innocent gay black man was threatening her. The incident started over Christian Cooper, no relation, politely asking that she leash her dog. She quickly escalated the situation and got the police involved. Fortunately, Christian was recording her the entire time, and once the internet got a hold of the video, the outcry against her was swift. As of this afternoon, a ban from Central Park for Miss Cooper is still being considered.
This is good news. I'm glad she's going to be banned from Central Park, hopefully. She also got fired today. I think that's good news. I also heard that her dog was taken back by the adoption agency that gave her the dog. And yes, she deserves all these repercussions. If you watch the video, you see that she blatantly switched gears and chose to be racist on camera. She could have got this man killed, and she knew that the police officer was side with her. A black man is threatening me, and she started to escalate and get more angry because she wanted the police to come, and God knows what could have happened.
Well, the only thing that Misty didn't get was caning her. Of course, you have consequences from your actions and your words, and that is what has happened here. I feel sorry for her. I understand that the other person involved in this incident has also expressed the same thing. But you have to be responsible for your words and actions.
I thought you were leaving the caning part to me, since it's my specialty. But what's really disconcerting here, even if this woman was completely inaccurate in what she was doing, and maybe even quite prejudiced, what we're seeing is the government take over more, and we should always assume by all standards that we're being watched at every point of our lives. Maybe we'd act with more of a moral code if we assumed that we were being watched by others, or at least by ourselves, and how we would want God to see us. But it turns out that God is just the cameras around the corner constantly nowadays.
Now we queer up the USA. Same-gendered spouses gain equal access to Social Security survivors benefits nationwide. In a major victory for the LGBTQ community, Lambda Legal has just won a class action fight, Eli versus Saul. The same-sex spouses that were denied equal access to survivors' benefits due to unconstitutional marriage bans. Specifically, the federal district court ruled that the Social Security Administration did not act legally when they refused to consider claims by spouses who were unable to be married for the 9 months required by the Social Security Administration due to prior state marriage bans.
Well, this is absolutely crystal clear. From my standpoint, there's not a whole lot to talk about because this was so incredibly obvious for the judge and the court to rule this way.
That said, it's still an exciting, I'm not sure if it would be a precedent, but an exciting thing to have follow. Right now, you can go in as an LGBTQ person and have a little bit more protection, or at least feel that that is supported by what has happened in recent events. And I hope that that means something and doesn't just get reversed moving forward.
I'll take this praise report.
We queer up the USA tonight by reporting Pastor Kent Butterfield's wife is thanking God for COVID-19 because prides are being canceled. Rosario Butterfield, whose two claims to fame seem to be being married to Kent Butterfield and being his wife, and claiming to be an ex-lesbian who found God, wants everyone to be thankful for the coronavirus, which has killed 100,000 people of her fellow Americans. She was quick to point out in a column in the website Desiring God this week that without live events, the LGBT community would have the oxygen sucked out of its movement, as only the faithful would attend online.
Well, that is definitely true that a lot of LGBTQ events, just like every other event, are going to go down the crapper with this lack of events coming up. We're not meeting in person, and therefore that kills a lot of our community. But it's up to us as an LGBTQ community to show that we are not just sex and drugs, and that we actually have a connection that goes deeper than that. And so for this quoted ex-lesbian, I apologize for who you are and that lack of self-awareness, but perhaps we'll show you who we really are as a community.
Miss Rosario, have you heard the statement, "Thou protest too much"? By pointing out the fact that you were an ex-lesbian and now you're very thankful that all the prides were canceled does not distract from the fact that you might have a crush on the choir girl that you see every Sunday. Also, I want to let you know, more churches' Easters were canceled because of COVID-19 than gay prides were canceled. You should think about that too.
Yeah, absolutely. The one sad thing to the note is her observation is true. We start on Monday, Pride Month, and COVID-19 is going to have a dramatic effect on the celebration of Pride all over America and the world.
Queer Up the USA. Georgia faces mounting pressure from many businesses to enact hate crime law. The bill, which would enact harsher sentencing on crimes that involved targeting based on sexual orientation and gender identity, is working its way through the Georgia Senate at a slow pace due to the efforts of the Republican State Senator Jesse Stone, who has reservations about the measure. However, recently both the Georgia Chamber of Commerce and the Metro Atlanta Chamber have come out to support the bill's passage. A renewed focus on the bill has come after the killing of Ahmaud Arbery near Brunswick.
I'm not surprised that people are panicking with gay laws. I just hope that you think of the fact that we are all one human family and that we have heartbeats just like you.
Georgia should be watched closely here because Georgia is a linchpin in the South. For you watching Q News tonight around the country, in the South, Georgia is one of the critical states that is in the balance. There's a fight both in terms of the governor and Atlanta as a metropolitan area and the state as a whole, certainly for the presidential election. So what happens here is largely probably an indicator of the liberalness or the blueness of Georgia in terms of what we see and what comes out of this.
Or the lack thereof, as Al's saying. If this bill doesn't get passed, if it doesn't get moved swiftly, which it currently isn't, then it would show that Georgia and perhaps the whole state is not moving as forwardly toward LGBTQ rights as we'd hope that it would.
Mm-hmm. Queer Up the World. Malaysia's top court affirms legal change to Islamic ban on homosexuality. The top court approved a man's challenge to the nation's Islamic ban on homosexuality, allowing his case to go forward. The man was not identified, only that he was a Muslim male in his 30s. The plaintiff argues that his state, Selangor, can't ban homosexuality under its Muslim legal system when it's already banned under the civil legal system. The civil ban on homosexuality is still on the books from when Malaysia was a British colony, yet it is rarely enforced. In his case, if it fails, he could be caned for the crime of being gay.
This is very exciting news because just like what I suggested on Georgia, Malaysia could be a linchpin in Asia and the Middle East for Muslim countries. This ruling is not pro-gay. This is an interim step to say you can't discriminate because of these new duplicative laws that are policy in Malaysia. However, it's the first domino turning over that could have substantive effect on Malaysia and other Muslim countries throughout Asia and the Middle East.
That all being true, this is the second time just this episode that we've gotten to talk about being caned. So clearly we are at the end of isolation because our whole production team wants me to think about that as we're moving forward into the weekend.
We moved from Malaysia to all about Napoleon. Wow, that's interesting. All right, we're going to queer up entertainment tonight to report on Ruby Rose. She breaks her silence after the sudden Batwoman departure. Ruby Rose seemed to still be in character when she addressed her sudden departure from the hit CW show Batwoman, where she played the lead character by keeping the precise reason for her exit a mystery. It has been confirmed that it is not related to the back injury that she suffered during filming of the first season, as some speculated. Despite not being very forthcoming as to why she left, the actress said that those that needed to know knew the reason, and she wished everyone on the best of season 2, or everyone the best on season 2 of the show.
I'm a little embarrassed to admit that I actually haven't watched this. I'm a comic fan. I am obviously part of the LGBTQ activist culture, but I'm not familiar with Batwoman in the Ruby Rose incarnation. So I'm not sure what's going on behind the scenes as far as her wanting to quit. I assume it has something to do with money. But how can this show move on without Batwoman if it doesn't have another Bat character? It'll be interesting to tell. Maybe she's just pulling a stunt, but who knows? It hopefully won't harm the LGBTQ community.
I said this before in the show. I also think she's pulling a diva move. The show was crazy successful, and I'm sure she's like, I want more money. They said no. She thought she could cancel, and they said, guess what? You can be replaced.
Am I the only person on the planet that really doesn't care much about this story or Batwoman? Not sure.
We queer up gay culture. I was thrown off by Al's distaste for Batwoman. ACT UP founder Larry Kramer, Normal Heart playwright, passed away at 84. Larry Kramer was more than just a playwright. He was a trailblazing AIDS activist who had a tight grip on the pulse of our LGBTQ community. When the AIDS stigma was at its peak, Kramer published his essay, 1,112 and Counting, single-handedly shifting public perception of the epidemic. The cause of death for him was pneumonia, according to his close friend and literary executor, William Schwalbe.
ACT UP. That was a stand and put your money where your mouth is organization, was speaking up against intolerance. He was one of the founders, and we appreciate him not only with that and his activism, but also with his writings. He was a great author and a historian for our community.
We're very excited to report, of course, later in the show, we're going to be doing Q's Q&A on coronavirus, and a very good friend to the show, Dr. Howard Grossman, is here tonight to do that, out of surgery, by the way, and not doing the surgery, having the surgery done on him. Dr. Grossman was a friend here, and we're going to bring him in for a moment. Want to welcome you to Q News Tonight. Anything you want to tell us about his passing and your relationship with him?
Thanks, Al. It's been a really rough day and a half since getting the news that Larry died, and he was sick for a long time. You know, he was the cat with more than 9 lives between HIV, liver transplant, falls, pneumonias, but it's still a shock that he's gone. People are going to be reading a lot of things about his founding of GMHC, one of the founders of GMHC, Gay Men's Health Crisis in New York, of ACT UP, of his activism. I just want to make sure that your listeners and viewers understand that what Larry most wants to be remembered for is his writing. And I think we look at his writing. Many people saw The Normal Heart when it became a movie on HBO just a couple of years ago. An incredible job they did with that. And what people see from that show is an angry, horrifying story of the early days of the HIV epidemic. But what really is at the heart of that show is a love story. And I think that is the key to understanding Larry Kramer and his legacy. Is Larry was in love with the gay community, and Larry wanted us all to find love. Every time I saw him, he wanted to know if I had a new boyfriend or not. Love was really what made this visibly angry man tick.
Now we queer up business. Study shows that LGBTQ inclusion in ads benefits those brands. The study was conducted by Procter & Gamble with help from the advocacy group GLAAD. What they found was that by putting people from our LGBT community in the spotlight made their products more relatable to their consumers, and once again proved that the gay dollar is a valuable tool at our disposal when it comes to wielding economic power in the community. They did warn, though, that trying too hard to be diverse led some of their respondents to feel as if they were just a token LGBTQ person in the company, which is not a desired effect.
Well, the old adage in marketing is true. You repeat it, you repeat it, you repeat it, and then repeat it again. and this study indicates that. The use of LGBTQ imaging in your advertising is desirable, and repeating it over and over again is desirable for your brand. I'm glad that they found this out in this study.
That's definitely true. I've paid more attention to eHarmony since 2020 started than I did any of the other years where they did not cater to the LGBTQ or specifically gay audience. I want to find my match, and I might go on it now.
This doesn't surprise me at all. What American housewife doesn't want to use the same dishwashing detergent that the gays use? Hello, trendsetters.
We queer up health tonight by reporting governments must urgently act to provide trans health care during coronavirus, according to new science reports. Scientists have concluded in the United Kingdom that our COVID-19 crisis has already brought and wrought devastating psychological distress on a global scale. Even before the pandemic, trans people had a long journey ahead of them. In the UK, for example, having an average wait time of 3 years to see a gender specialist. To make matters worse, gender-affirming surgery is considered elective, and due to the demand brought on by COVID, elective surgeries have been largely postponed or outright canceled. Scientists are urging that the government reevaluate to ensure that people already on hormone treatment do not have to suddenly stop because the consequences on their state of mind and body could be so dire.
I just want to make that more normalized for some of you at home that might not be on hormone therapy, and I'm sure Misty could do a better job, but the reality is that the way that you think, the way that you breathe, the standard of living of which you've accumulated over the last couple of weeks improving versus the time beforehand when you were in a dark time and didn't know who you were is finally starting to change. And what is now being potentially taken away from those people is the ability to continue that self-growth. It's definitely a dilemma.
I'm surprised you know so much about the transgender community, Napoleon. But it is true. I can't imagine if somebody were to tell me I could not take my hormones anymore. During COVID-19 pandemic quarantine, we were shut down for about 3 months of not having simple things like nails. And my dysphoria without having nails for that couple-week period was shocking to my psyche.
That's interesting.
Yeah, because I looked at my hands and saw manly hands, and that was very triggering for me.
You commented on that.
You know, while I'm brought to a stop with that because that washes over me in understanding, my reaction to this, while important, is we have a lot more important things to do, like enacting laws that prevent so much violence against this community. I hope we reconsider our entire policy toward trans in the United States and all over the world. That is our Q headlines. Next, let's catch up on all of the news surrounding COVID-19 with our Quarantine Quickies. The first story tonight is our daily reporting of the coronavirus facts, especially important to the LGBTQ community. Quarantine Quickies. The facts for Thursday, May 28, 2020. We report first on the number of cases. Remember, based on the standard acceptance of 7% of LGBT population, world LGBTQ COVID-19 cases stand at 408,000. America's LGBTQ COVID-19 cases stand at 122,000. World cases are closing in on 6 million, and total USA cases have crossed 1.2 million. We remind you that we in America are ground zero. We only have 4.4% of the world's population, but 30% of all of the cases in the world. We report on coronavirus deaths. World LGBTQ COVID-19 deaths now are crossing 25,000, while America's LGBTQ deaths are over 7,100. Total worldwide deaths are closing in on 360,000, while USA deaths are now standing at 102,500. We've crashed through that 100K barrier that we talked about. Again, remember, America is a third of all the COVID deaths in the world, now accounting for 28.5%, and that number is higher today. President Trump and Vice President Pence have said a lot of ridiculous things about testing in the LGBT community, so here's the facts. As of today, we've tested now over 16 million tests taken in the United States, but the number is still dismal. We give the government a grading rating in testing of C-, better but still poor, because there are 328 million Americans and we've only tested 4.84%. Despite what Trump and Pence tell the LGBT community, testing and contact source tracing is the #1 solution out of pandemic, and we're still not there, almost at June 1st. As a result, Q News Tonight recognizes our Hall of Fame top states in testing. Tonight, as of this date, #3, that is North Dakota, #2 is New York, and #1 is Rhode Island. We also at Q News Tonight recognize our Hall of Shame states doing the worst job in testing. LGBT America, we hope you don't live here. And those states are #5, Kansas, #4, Colorado, #3, Oregon, #2, Idaho, and Dr. Grossman always hates me to say #1, Puerto Rico. Q News Tonight is the world's first 24/7 LGBTQ news source. And now we enhance it with our LGBT live ticker on all of our platforms. If you are wanting the facts around pandemic or anything else dealing with news in the LGBT community, you can now watch it anytime because you can go to any of our channels and the ticker will update you in real time with the very same information we provide you every night. Just like it's appearing on the screen right now, we're kind of like a little mini CNN now.
Quarantine Quickies. Studies show that COVID antibodies may only protect for 6 months before reinfection is possible. We've reported on this video. Watch this.
But a new study suggests any immunity probably goes away 6 months after you've gotten coronavirus. 10 Tampa Bay's Emerald Morrow spoke to doctors at USF who explained this makes it even more important to wear masks and stay distant.
But a new study from the University of Amsterdam suggests immunity could run out after just 6 months, meaning it's possible you could unknowingly catch it again and pass it on.
Getting reinfected by the novel coronavirus could be possible within 6 to 12 months of recovery, according to a new study published by a team in Amsterdam. Since there is no treatment or vaccine for the novel coronavirus, or COVID-19, the disease to which it leads, the only way to stop its spread is through social distancing and good hygiene.
As such, long-term protective immunity could impact the overall course of the pandemic, the post-pandemic period, and additional waves. Until now, this concept had been a key component in the health ministry's second wave strategy. Since around 80% of people who get the virus show little or no symptoms, they can carry and spread it without knowing.
Relatedly, there has been ongoing discussion about the herd immunity, the idea that when a threshold proportion of population is immune to a certain pathogen, this protects even non-immune individuals against the infection by limiting overall spread. Such a concept has proven effective with a variety of other viruses, including hepatitis and influenza A. However, achieving herd immunity may be challenging due to rapid loss of protective immunity if the Amsterdam study is correct. Moreover, if the study is correct, then a seasonal rather than one-time vaccine may be necessary to circumvent ongoing transmission.
I know Dr. Grossman here today is going to say that this is science in the working, that we're not very sure of all that much as far as it relates to coronavirus. But the problem with this is that 6 months is a very short time frame. So how can we ever possibly find herd immunity or people that will actually be able to work in the world if we can continually become reinfected? The virus is here forever, but what happens next? We'll figure it out.
Every year I get my flu shot. I wouldn't be surprised if this became very similar to that.
And I'm going to withhold my comments until we get to Q's Q&A because antibody is the top attack conversation in America. And Dr. Grossman is going to help us untangle all of that.
Quarantine Quickies. 41 million Americans now unemployed, with 2.9 million of those being in the LGBTQ community. We have a segment for you to watch. Watch this.
And we're back with breaking economic news. The U.S. Labor Department says that another 2.1 million Americans filed for unemployment benefits last week, right in line with expectations. That brings the 10-week total since the pandemic began to nearly 41 million.
Thursdays have become a grim day in America as new unemployment numbers are reported for the previous week. Today, a number was reported that is unique in American history. The Department of Labor reports that 41 million Americans are now unemployed, and estimates are that as many as 40% of jobs will not return in the next 12 months. Very distressing for the LGBTQ community is reporting that an estimated 2.9 million LGBTQ Americans have lost their jobs because of the coronavirus. COVID-19 is now, beyond any shadow of a doubt, the greatest economic disaster in LGBTQ history.
Well, the White House reported today that they're not going to do any economic forecast for the summer. Highly unusual. It's the first time in 40 years that the White House has not done that in terms of economic forecasting. That means things are bad.
We've already talked about how this is particularly bad for the LGBTQ community who works in a lot of the fields that have been let off for the last 3 months. But we might not see it get better because there could be a second wave or a third wave. As our reports have shown you tonight, this might not be going away anytime soon. And just because things are reopening right now, that doesn't mean that we are going to the end of the tunnel by any means.
Things are reopening, but bars were the first thing to close, and I think they will be the last thing to open. So that means many LGBTQ people working in nightclubs for entertainment, bartending, waiting, etc., they're going to be struggling.
That is the news highlights we call Quarantine Quickies. Next, we queue up our segment called Coronavirus Good News. We want to report on something that made us smile today. Coronavirus Good News. 6-year-old's wish is granted by legendary skater Tony Hawk. This little boy got to exchange gifts with his skateboarding hero after a compassionate FedEx driver went above and beyond the call of duty to make it happen. Delivery driver Mikhail Farrar had been driving through Suwanee, Georgia on his daily route last week when he saw a youngster chasing after his mail truck.
The 6-year-old Cooper Morgan had flagged Farrar down so he could ask him to deliver a gift to his skateboarding idol, Tony Hawk. The gift was a worn-out skateboard deck that had Tony Hawk's name written in black marker on one end of the board and Cooper's name written on the other.
Although the board was not properly packaged or addressed, the youngster told Farrar, quote, "Get this to Tony Hawk for me. Tell him it's from Cooper." Farrar did not want to disappoint Cooper, so he took a chance on the internet and posted a video to his TikTok channel explaining his predicament.
A few hours after uploading the post, he checked his phone and was stunned to see a flood of notifications from social media users tagging Tony Hawk and praising Farrar for the adorable gesture. Not only that, Hawk uploaded a video response to Farrar on his channel, which was the pro skater's first TikTok video in 2 years.
Hawk thanked Farrar for connecting him to his young fans and sent a private message asking for his home address so Farrar could mail a skateboard. Hawk then mailed several new skateboards over to Cooper and his family in return. Cooper's father said, seeing the look of joy in their faces when he saw the video, and then when they got the package this morning, it's been surreal.
This gesture of innocence and kindness during pandemic makes this Q News Tonight's Coronavirus Good News. We've prepared more on the story. Watch this.
I just want to say thank you for the skateboard, and you're a very great skater.
And I just want to say thank you so much for the skateboard. It's on its way to my house already, and as a thank you gift, I'm going to send you my skateboard, this one right here that I'm riding.
I'm doing my delivery route today and I see this little kid chasing my truck, trying to flag me down. He's like, excuse me. So I pull over, I'm like, hey man, what's up? He's like, can you mail something for me? He says, get this to Tony Hawk for me. Tell him it's from Cooper. And I just thought it was adorable. Obviously I can't mail it to Tony Hawk. I don't know Tony Hawk's address, but the least I could do was put it out there in the universe. So Tony, if you see this, Cooper in Suwanee, Georgia is a big fan. Maybe you can give him a shout out, and the next time I drive by his house, I'll show him the video, and it'll probably make his whole life.
Hey Cooper, what's up? It's Tony Hawk, and I just want to say thank you so much for the skateboard.
I'm so happy that we were able to use social media in a positive way, connecting with one another, working together to make somebody's day, because that's what it's all about.
Well, that is absolutely good news. We would like to thank our set designer tonight, Concepto Modern Living here in Fort Lauderdale, for making the set that Q News Tonight is at in this living museum possible.
Tonight we are broadcasting from our studio set in the middle of the World AIDS Museum and Education Center. The museum is in Wilton Manors and Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
We joke, we're coming from the gayest place on planet Earth. Tonight, May 28th, is part 11 of Q's Q&A on coronavirus.
Part 11.
Part 11.
11 weeks of coronavirus Q&A.
Q's Q&A on coronavirus and the LGBTQ community. This special segment is designed to be unique in America to answer your questions about coronavirus for the LGBTQ community during this pandemic.
Tonight we have an American pioneer in AIDS HIV medical treatment. With us is Dr. Howard Grossman, specialist in internal medicine with an emphasis on HIV. He was the executive director of the American Academy of HIV Medicine. He has become nationally recognized as an educator on HIV issues and as an advocate for LGBTQ, civil rights, and the rights of our community.
And he has become a medical expert during the pandemic for Q News Tonight. We'd like to welcome Dr. Grossman. Before we get into viewer questions, first, before talking about the week, I have to let you know, America, Dr. Grossman has had surgery today. Not performing surgery, but having surgery performed on him. And he only arrived early, just moments before the show went on the air. And so if we can do a picture with Dr. Grossman, we're likely going to make fun of you all evening tonight.
But he's a trooper.
In terms of your situation. And absolutely, you're a trooper. We forced him out of bed.
A bit glassy-eyed.
Yeah, exactly. But thank you very much. Let's begin our Q's Q&A about how we always begin. Anything of what you watched this week that's on your mind about the pandemic?
Well, I have to say, Al, first, this is very important to me, this show, and what you guys are doing, so there's no way I was going to miss it if I was able to come. I really appreciate what you all do. This is going to sound a little circuitous, but I really want to start by saying we saw something horrible this week. We watched nationally an unarmed black man get murdered in cold blood in front of video cameras in the United States. And, you know, a lot of the things are being talked about as far as racism. Clearly, this was a big part of this. But it's more than that. Life is becoming cheap here. People start to look at us as commodities. And I think that this applies to the LGBTQ community as well. It applies to coronavirus. We're becoming numbers, and it's horrifying to see that that a person could think that they could do this on national TV, and likewise that you have people running around everywhere without masks on. I think that when you see the pictures from Alabama, Myrtle Beach, places all over the place where people are crowding and on top of each other, and sort of dismissing the whole idea that this may be fatal to a whole lot of people, you realize that something is wrong here in how we value life. You know, I think as far as coronavirus goes, and this is really important for your viewers, we're not in January, February anymore. Okay, January, February, we shut the country down because it was really important to stop things in their path and try to figure out how people can protect themselves. The people who are running around now without masks and crowding in places are acting like it's January again. The big difference here is that the first spike that they call it in infections mostly happened in New York. Well over half the infections were in New York. Now that 3 months have passed, this virus has spread across the country. So if we see a spike, it's not going to be in one place, it's going to be everywhere. And in Montgomery, Alabama last week, they had one open ICU bed. They are shipping people to Birmingham because their ICU beds are overwhelmed. The doctors there are freaked out about what's going to happen in the next 2 weeks. So this is the canary in the coal mine. I think, Alabama.
Dr. Grossman, I'm curious, and we've reported on this all week. We've done commentary about it. We did a short documentary, America. I encourage you to see Meet Me at the Rose Bowl. It's really an outstanding illustration to what Dr. Grossman just said. As it relates to masks, the effectiveness study, there's been multiple studies coming out now of the overwhelming effectiveness of the simple use of the mask while you're outside. Why do you suspect so many people are rejecting the use of it?
Number one, it's become a political thing. Donald Trump isn't wearing a mask. I don't have to wear a mask. And you hear people say this. Number two, it's this entitled, these entitled people. That woman in Central Park, her whole thing is she felt entitled to put this man at risk because she, for whatever reason, decided that she felt threatened. People have this sense of entitlement. They have this sense that life is cheap. They have this sense that if it's not affecting me and my friends and I, it doesn't really matter. I think there's a whole bunch of that. I think from a medical point of view, we are giving people too many guidelines. If you don't keep guidelines simple, people don't follow them. Like we talked about last week, in HIV, in most of the world, there were 2 guidelines for preventing HIV. Pardon my language. Don't get fucked without a condom, and use a clean needle if you're shooting drugs.
That's right.
Okay, that was it. Simple, easy to follow. There was no question. There were no disclaimers. You know, well, maybe to the best of our knowledge, it was that those are the guidelines. Here, everything was, well, maybe oral sex, even though we don't know. It lives for 72 hours on the surface of a table. And then you ask the question, well, how many people got it that way? And the answer is 0. So why are we even talking about this? Right. Everything was so complicated, people throw their arms up and say, I can't follow anything.
You know, we talked about this week as it relates to the mask, and I want to move into our first question quickly. But we talked about with the mask this week, that the government, right from the beginning, the White House Coronavirus Commission, the CDC, everyone created confusion right from the beginning going, you don't have to wear a mask. That was what was discussed for weeks and weeks and weeks. And then it changed to, well, a mask can't hurt you. And then we moved to, like in California, a mask should be mandatory. And they passed that. So that confusion point is what you just illustrated.
And people just give up.
Yeah, and they give up. It leads us to basically a quick letter grade. Our first question is always, what letter grade would you give America this week in response for coronavirus?
You know, I'm going to do what I do every week, and it keeps going. Can we just like go to Z right away?
No, because we have too many weeks left.
Okay.
Oh, God.
I mean,
so to remind you, America, the first time we asked this question, he gave an F.
F minus.
Dr. Grossman moved to F minus, then he moved to H, or no, he moved to G, and then you moved to H. Last week was H.
Because this isn't poor performance. This is performance that is actively promoting passing the virus. So we are in a negative number zone where they're actually making more people get infected. And I just don't understand.
So we moved down to I this week.
So yeah, so we haven't had a good week in America. No. Let's jump into our
and we are in a period of, warn your viewers, the next 2 weeks. So in many places, like in Florida, most people did not get infected because we shut it down. But now the virus is all around us. And these next couple of weeks are going to be critical for people to not relax the standards.
To your point, bring it home. You live on Wilton Drive, right here in the gayest place on planet Earth. Friday night, we saw the pictures of what was going on in Wilton Drive. Right in our own backyard. What you think in the next 2 weeks we're going to see the effects of what?
The effects of the 2-3 weeks.
Yeah.
But on the same time, good news. I went to my gym. I'm not doing an advertisement, but it was spotlessly clean. The machines were 6 feet apart. Everybody was checked going into the gym. You can wear a mask if you want, but not if you don't want. But you're distanced. Anybody who's coughing or sneezing doesn't get in. And I will tell you, the machinery was literally sparkling. I went to Publix yesterday morning, a big supermarket chain here in Florida, And I have never seen bottles sparkle in a grocery store.
Yeah.
So some people are doing things the right way, and we really need to celebrate them and talk about the creative solutions they're coming up with.
Yeah, we did a
Essential
report.
workers.
We've just done a report on Zoo Gym here, the first that opened in Broward County, and they did an outstanding job. Let's jump right into the questions that viewers have asked.
A viewer asks us, how does the response to COVID-19 land on you in comparison to the AIDS crisis?
Well, we've talked about that a lot, and I think it's part of it is that we have an experience with a pandemic that has killed enormous numbers of people. They're different. HIV moves more slowly.
This is much higher numbers,
years,
much faster time.
before we hit 100,000 people, which, by the way, ended up on page 18 of the New York Times. That 100,000 people died of AIDS, not on the front page, and no acknowledgement with names. But it's a different pace. We reached this number in 3 months with COVID-19.
Yeah.
But we know about watching science as it develops. We know how to look at this raw data and sort of figure out how to make some clinical decisions. We know about messaging. We invented harm reduction, which is really basically saying you cannot eliminate harm and risk, but you minimize it. And that's what we were just talking about with these protective measures. We're in this for 2 years, okay, at least. This is not going away tomorrow, which is another message that the White House keeps trying to push out, that this is temporary. So why should I worry? It's going to be temporary.
Yeah.
It's 2 years, and we need to figure out ways to live in this virus's world.
That's a political response because somebody's running for president and vice president on November 3rd. Misty, ask.
Our next viewer question is, what are potential implications of Memorial Day weekend activities?
Well, like we were just saying, I think this next 2 to 3 weeks is going to tell us a lot about what may happen. And so for those people who are thinking of venturing out, yes, venture out, but make sure that you critically examine the places you're going. Don't relax your precautions with masks. Masks do work. Keep washing your hands and sanitizing your hands. Stay out of big crowded places.
Socially distant.
Those are simple messages. Just do that, and let's see what happens over the 2 weeks.
The highlighter of that message is the government's not going to save you. So now the medical advice you just heard is you've got to be your own advocate of safety.
Which is also
and
like
that means
HIV.
being outside over inside, bigger spaces over larger spaces, fewer people over more people, and less time over more time.
Yeah.
Exactly.
The next viewer question. Some news stories suggest that antibody tests can be incredibly inaccurate. Can you tell us more about the accuracy studies and what it means in layman's terms?
Well, let's face it, the FDA allowed rapid antibody tests and some other antibody tests to be pushed out without actually evaluating whether they actually could pick up on the virus. And the Abbott test that was pushed out, that the government pushed, that they bought 15,000 machines and hospitals pushed it out. An NYU study said that there up to 40% of the negatives were false negatives. The rapid tests, a large number of them were withdrawn from the market last Friday. Some voluntarily, some forced by the FDA because they're inaccurate. They didn't prove their accuracy. So it's important to know which test you're using.
Tell us that.
The laboratories, I recommend that people use the big laboratory testing. Those are probably the ones with the most accuracy.
Let's do this very slowly. Which are? The ones that you recommend to use are?
Well, the big labs are really Quest, LabCorp, and BioReference. Those are the 3 biggest labs. There are other labs that probably have some good technology, but try to learn what kind of study they've done to look at the sensitivity and the specificity.
And in clarity, LabCorp and Quest, the two largest. They're the 2 largest in the United States. If your doctor is not referring or not doing the testing via LabCorp or Quest, would you recommend that the LGBT community go someplace else?
You can go to the lab yourself. they're doing it just for the public if you go in there.
Yeah.
And
But wait, to my specific question, for accuracy, because we want to peel the fact that these tests are not inaccurate, it's just many of the rapid tests were inaccurate, which is what is being reported, and LabQuest and Quest and LabCorp are being lumped into it.
Yeah.
There's accuracy there, and so if medical professionals are not using those tests, do you or do you not recommend that they go someplace else?
Like I said, they could go right to the lab themselves.
Okay.
But realize we don't know everything about antibodies. That's absolutely clear. A positive, and there are lots of health authorities saying, well, don't get them. What's the point? Well, I would counter with this. Number one, a positive test means that you were exposed to the virus and developed a response. That tells us how many people have been exposed, have been infected. Okay, that's an important number. Should you relax all of your precautions about wearing a mask and things? No, you should still be wearing it out of respect and to protect yourself. But there's no question it gives people a sense of taking a deep breath.
Let's add one more issue before we move to the next question about antibodies that is so important.
Mm-hmm.
To your standard, it keeps ringing in my head week after week after week. We have millions of people now that have been infected. They're past infection, they have antibodies, and we don't see any reporting that somebody has been reinfected in showing antibodies. Is that statement correct?
Yes.
Which means the standard of why you would get an antibody test is proven just on that anecdotally, isn't it?
Well, there's still, like I said, there's still a lot of questions, but it doesn't hurt to do it.
Yeah.
Let's say, what is the downside if you get a positive antibody test and it's not right, or even if it is right, you're going to rip your mask off. You're going to put yourself at higher risk for being exposed to the virus, and you may then pass the virus to other people. Well, what's the difference between that and these people who are running around without their masks on?
You're crystal clear on that.
Okay.
Right.
So I think it's a very useful thing to do. What's coming from the major laboratories is a blood test. So you draw a tube of blood. So there's no supply shortage in doing this. I think it helps us.
The next question is another antibody question from a viewer. There's a new study that suggests antibodies only protect you for 6 months. What are the implications of this?
Well, see, now this is the pleasure of live TV, because I'm going to suggest that you shouldn't have run with that story at all, except that everybody else is running with that story. So I very quickly looked up what is this study. It's 10 patients who have been followed with other coronaviruses, not COVID-19. And these people are basically doing science by press release again, and saying, they posted it to this website. They're basically saying that with other coronaviruses, the antibodies did not last. Now, flu is a coronavirus, so we know in flu, the coronavirus, that the antibodies don't last. So what does that tell us? And it doesn't tell us anything about SARS, COVID-19, because they didn't look at that. So, and again, 10 patients. So I would throw this thing right out the window, but I saw every media outlet has picked up on this.
I want to make sure that we're clear before we go on to Napoleon's next question. I believe Dr. Grossman just told all of us that we did fake news.
That we were about to without his help.
No, you fell into a trap.
Right.
Well, that's why we have you here to clarify.
That's exactly right.
We didn't report on it. A viewer asked a question.
Exactly. And that moves us on to the next viewer question for you to help us clarify.
Well, but you did report on it earlier.
Yeah, we did the story earlier.
Yeah.
We are
so we need people need to be careful.
Yeah.
Exactly true. And let's help. You can help us with this next question.
Okay.
We're already at 100,000 deaths in the U.S. Where does that place our death toll in comparison to other countries? And what about in comparison to other disease outbreaks in our history?
Well, I mean, it puts us, we are the highest number of deaths in the world, with Brazil number 2. We've outpaced China, and our per capita rates are incredibly high. So you can't just look at the number of deaths, you have to look at the number of people in the country.
Yeah.
And this is, you know, you read the stuff. This is the, you know, incredible numbers of wars lumped together haven't killed this many people, and this is what, you know, 275,000 Benghazis or something that they spent so much money and so much wasted time on. I mean, this is a horror story. You know, the ACT UP poster is back out again. Donald Trump has blood on his hands. And this didn't have to happen.
Wow, that's an incredible soundbite. And to Napoleon, the viewer's second half of the question, how does this relate to other disease outbreaks in history? Where's coronavirus sitting?
Well, again, I'll point to syphilis. When syphilis hit Western Europe in the late 1400s, it literally killed millions of people. Now we know syphilis doesn't kill people anymore. The same with hepatitis B. When that first was introduced into the population, killed, you know, millions of people. And that happens with a lot of epidemics. You end up killing the most susceptible people, and the people who are left have some sort of genetic resistance.
You make the medical observation that so many people are talking about, the political observation. The political core of our reopening movement is based on that. We're going to get sick anyway, so let's just push it out and we'll accept the consequences. What do you think about that observation?
You know, again, it's the devaluation of people's lives, and you know, and the Swedes left things open and have had a huge death rate. You know, Sweden is a very collective society where they do many things because it's going to benefit the most people. And there are some people who are just going to lose out. But the greater societies felt to benefit. We're a society in the US that people want to know what's my risk? What's going to happen to me? And truthfully, as an HIV provider, I always treated the person who was sitting in front of me, very different than other. My brother's an oncologist, and my brother said he's a cancer doctor, and he said, when I'm treating the person in front of me, I'm really treating the next person after that, because we're figuring out what's going to work. I was always trying to treat that person right in front of me, so the loss of every single person
that washes
matters.
over me, just dramatic what you just said.
The next viewer question. There is research to support a link between dementia and worse COVID outcomes. What is your opinion, and how can this help us collectively defeat this threat?
You know, I'm not totally aware of this research, but I would think that much of it has to do with the social determinants of health. Where are people with dementia living? Why might they be at increased risk? How many people with dementia are living in nursing homes where this has been a devastating epidemic, killing off huge population? Many people with dementia are frail. You know, all of those things may come into play.
The next viewer question. Why don't social distancing rules apply to air travel? Are airlines taking other precautions to protect passengers?
Well, social distancing has become a meme, and we've talked about this before. You know, social distancing was put in place when people weren't wearing masks. So, you know, the idea was that if this is a respiratory virus and you're coughing or sneezing, you want to be 6 to 15 feet apart from people so that you don't get hit in the face with a virus, with a spray, right? Now, if you're checking people for temperature at the door, and anybody coughing or sneezing isn't allowed on the plane, and everybody on the plane is wearing a mask, and you're being careful with utensils and things like that, what added benefit is there, risk-wise, to staying 6 feet apart? And nobody can answer that question because that study has not been done. So that's about social distancing. I know that many airlines are doing all the things we just talked about. I know, for example, that JetBlue is keeping the middle seats open. American Airlines apparently said very blatantly they're keeping middle seats open unless they oversell the flight.
Yeah, unless they sell them.
Right?
Right.
But I can tell you that I have a number of flight attendants that are patients of mine. And they would, you think, be at a very high risk. None of them have tested positive. Not one. Although there have been flight attendants who've gotten sick and died, we know that. But that's just my cohort. Remember that the air in an airplane is filtered. So probably, as enclosed spaces go, you are in a very safe place.
Make sure that I haven't heard that said exactly like that. If you were going to fly and you felt comfortable in terms of the mask, and if you had a bit more distancing because of middle seat, you would keep the mask on the entire time you were on the plane?
Oh, yeah.
For sure. Okay. Napoleon, another viewer question.
And nobody's flying. That's the other thing. So planes, we've seen the crowded planes, but for the most part, planes are empty, which is why the Trump administration just let the airlines dump, I think, 75 cities that they don't have to serve.
Exactly.
The next question is, can a previous infection of another coronavirus cause a positive COVID-19 antibody test? Will these antibodies actually provide any protection?
Okay, so that's what they call specificity, as a a statistical marker of a test. There is some crossover. There may be some crossover. So, for example, the Quest test we talked about says it's 99.4% specific. So there's a small number of tests that may actually be other viruses, but it's really small. Now, if you're testing people where the implications are, if you're testing people where the virus is everywhere, that's going to be a really small number of people. If you're testing for virus where very few people are infected, that small number gets more important. But I think for the most part, as we're moving with this, the tests are becoming better.
Dr. Grossman, on top of this, antibodies and antibody testing is going to be so important in the next month and through this entire summer, because more and more people are infected and they are asymptomatic, or they had mild symptoms, or they're going to come back to the workplace or whatever. All of the protections, masks, social isolation to the best of possible, washing hands, etc. But the issue of antibodies, what is your medical reaction of the gigantic questioning, the negative Nellies
like,
that you commented on? Why is it going on so harshly to say it means nothing? Antibodies mean nothing. It's nothing.
I think that we have, as a society and with social media, people think they look smarter because they come up with everything that could possibly be wrong with an argument. Instead of flipping it around and thinking, well, why might this argument be useful? Even given the caveats, the cautions, how might we use this data? That's a very different way to approach this than to just say, oh, it's not working.
Including your own safety.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Wow, that's really interesting.
Our final viewer question. What are long-term effects of being under constant levels of stress, like in this pandemic? And could this lead to pandemic-related physical health or mental health issues down the line?
Well, we know that things like post-traumatic stress disorder and mental health, other mental health, depression, has physical manifestations.
Yeah.
For many people, I like to always point to stress. People say it's all in your mind. But people under severe stress can get ulcers in their stomach. Okay, that's a pretty physical response to stress. So is the source in the mind? Yes. Is it whatever neurotransmitters, other things are released when we are under stress? Yes. There is a physical thing, but it's a physical manifestation. But getting at the stress and the anxiety is probably an important way to treat it. Organizations like Misty's, like SunServe, that provide mental health services, that have gone out there into the community and found the mental health providers who are good and who are treating, because finding the right provider is so important. These need to be promoted. People should be giving money to their local organizations that are providing mental health services. People should not be afraid. If you're feeling suicidal, call the suicide hotline. If you're under all this stress, call somebody and talk. There are people who know how to help you with this. Feeling stressed and anxious in this pandemic is not a weakness. This is a major disaster, and you shouldn't feel weak by reaching out.
Or wearing a mask.
Or wearing a mask.
We don't have to be toxically masculine to not wear a mask. Dr. Grossman, as always, we thank you very much. America, I want to tell you, well, first, South Florida, I want to tell you, Dr. Grossman runs a clinic here right off of Wilton Drive, Midway. And it is excellent. It's a 501c3. It is great for healthcare for the LGBT community. Come in and check out. You can do the antibody tests and all kinds of medical things that Dr. Grossman can do.
And Al, can I make one pitch for
Please.
patients? People have diseases. Don't stay away from your medical provider. Don't run out of your medication. If you lose your insurance, there are patient assistance programs, especially, I'm going to say people with HIV, there are lots of programs to help pay for your medication. Investigate them, call, ask for help, but don't stop taking your medicines and taking care of yourself.
And no matter what the issue, you're there. That's why you're a great provider, because you'll help every patient along the way.
Yes, absolutely. To springboard on Napoleon's point, it's why we are so grateful to Dr. Grossman. This is part 11. We're into 11 weeks. He's just given me the chilling news that we're going to be talking about this for 2 years. But he's been here every step of the way. He's gay. He is running, yes, exactly. He is running a 501c3 clinic for the LGBT community. He's nationally renowned in terms of this subject, and he gets into an operating room and be operated on and be still with us and with you, America, on the exact same day. That's
for your
dedication.
value.
Exactly. So we thank you very much on that. Thanks, America, this is part 11 of Q's Q&A, Coronavirus and the LGBT community. Every Thursday night, we will bring you viewer questions like this. All you have to do is ask online at Facebook or one of our platforms, and we'll get the questions in on the most important medical advice of the day from our medical expert, Dr. Howard Grossman. And always, again, Dr. Grossman, we thank you very much, and how loyal you've been to the LGBT community to help get us through the clutter of information that is coming out of the CDC, the White House Coronavirus Commission, and especially the Oval Office. We thank you very much for that. We end tonight's broadcast of Q News Tonight with the big finish. Short story mentions of LGBTQ news and news with a gay perspective. So here we go. First, on Q News Tonight's The Big Finish. Ellen gives her mom a butch buzz cut for her 90th birthday.
Ellen's mom has supported her every step of her coming out, and mine has too. Every new outing, as gay first, then as polyamorous, wanting more than one person in my relationship, and then as a kink, intense sexual connection. Thank you, Mom, for understanding all of my levels of coming out, because I know it has not been easy for you, and Ellen reminds me of a way to thank you today.
I'm not sure her mom is coming out, but I am surprised she waited this long to cut her mom's hair DIY style for quarantine. But I think I cut my own husband's hair. I mean, I think everybody's doing it, right?
No. You know, some people have been calling Ellen the queen of mean lately. As far as I'm concerned, any person who can endure giving their mom a haircut at the age of 90 has to be a saint.
Yeah.
I have seen Napoleon, for example, get a haircut, and he's only 30. Trying to personally, Al, give him one at 90? Oh God, that scares me.
Me too.
The big finish. Trump's press secretary admits she has voted 11 times by mail.
Trump, how do you stand by the lack of support for voting by mail? Do you not support the U.S. postal system? Do you not vote and support the country? We know you don't want social distancing, Trump. Is that why you don't want vote by mail? So more liberals who can't take off will get ill and die? This is part of the Trump genocide, and it's not at all hilarious.
Wait, hold on. I twittered that Michigan is going to do voting by mail fraud, and America's mad at me. So, hey, you, my friend, tell everyone you voted 11 times. If this were true, wouldn't she be fired? And also, can I vote for 11 times?
The most humorous thing of what you just said is I think you did a Donald Trump impression.
I tried.
I'm not sure.
You need more hands.
It was perfect. It was perfect.
Huge. We all do it. We all go through it. Right. All right. Stop.
Sorry.
You know that she is new to the White House, this press secretary, because someone forgot to give her the standard Trump administration memo that says, when you're caught red-handed, lie, deny, or you're going to say goodbye. I am sure that she is going to get better eventually at her job, or she is going to be just like one of the other 50 White Housers that bottomed for Donald Trump. The big finish.
You're gonna say
no
fired.
context Thursday. A straight man in quarantine thinks the pandemic might have turned him gay.
Girl, whatever you need to live your truth. I can imagine after 3 months of internal reflection, all of us have something to face. I'm on antidepressants right now. If yours is coming out, then you know what? I'm not going to make fun of you. Kudos to you. And if you're sexy, find me on Grindr.
Oh, you're going to make
I'm coming out. Okay, so yeah, I'm transgender because when I was 5 years old, I sneezed and somebody said they forgot to say bless you and a demon jumped in my body. So that's why I'm transgender. Why blame shift? We all know it's genetic. You are who you are. Oh, I was in prison. I'm trying to do Trump again. I've never done Trump before. That was my first time. But yeah, I was in prison and I had a dating relationship with another man and now I'm gay because of prison. No, you're gay because you liked it.
You tell those jokes, but that's what my church told me about you. Although this is supposed to be no context, due to my incredible journalistic excellence, I was given an exclusive interview with this man earlier today.
Oh.
And I found out that his life has been an absolute tragedy. So I would appreciate it if you two would stop making fun.
Oh.
Let me list why his life is such a pity. First, when he was 7, his dog ate his homework. Second, an incredibly inconvenient flat tire made him late to his first date. Third, his alarm did not go off on his first day at his new job. Fourth, his phone always dies when his former girlfriend is awaiting a callback. Fifth, his diet is going to be great. He just ordered his last pizza just today. Sixth, he always forgets his wallet when it's his turn to pay for dinner. And most important of all, why his life is so pitiful, he only sucked that guy's dick because if he didn't, the man would have fallen victim to a rare disease. And that is my crack journalistic reporting.
Blame shift.
Wow, I
blame
thought that we
shift,
talked
blame
about toxic
shift.
masculinity, Al, but Jesus.
The big finish. A Lansing, Michigan gay sex club closed by police, not because of sex, but for violating social distancing rules. Police said, no way they are 6 feet apart.
It's ballsy to be supporting opening or going to a gay sex club right now. I hope this doesn't destroy the future of the industry. Where will I go next? More importantly, where will my good friend Al go to get sex if this is closed? The legal sex club industry was in its budding youth, barely prepubescent. Probably poor terms to keep a sex club opened. I got that there. But it needs to be open. We must find a way for Al.
Anonymous gay sex 6 feet apart. Isn't that basically cam playing?
I will say that I have no knowledge of anything that we're talking about at all.
Of course not.
The only thing that I know about in places where people keep 6 feet apart, it was called my senior year at prom. Boy, in hindsight, do I feel bad for my date. She just didn't have what I really wanted.
The proper
The
plumbing.
big finish. The Queer Eye cast will appear on Celebrity Family Feud May 31st.
I wonder who they're going to go up against. If it isn't Orange is the New Black, my hope is for the Harlem Globetrotters from Futurama and Scooby-Doo and everything else. Or any of the Road Rules Real World Toxic Masculinity group from The Challenges. I bet it'll be the Real Housewives, though. That's about toxic femininity, much more intense than toxic masculinity, like Al's over there.
I personally love the Family Feud show, and I think Happening Out television should go on as a chosen family.
Aww.
No. I can't wait to see which of the guys gives the answer that makes Steve Harvey squirm the most. You know it's coming. It is going to be a gay, and it's going to be very gay, and it's going to be glorious.
Squirming, glory,
The
gay.
big finish. Happy 52nd birthday to gay icon Kylie Minogue.
Oh my God, I love Kylie Minogue. And just like I often say to people around me, she inspired me in like 2011 when the song came out. Get out of my way, got no more to say. It's taking your place. Get out of my way. She encouraged me to be both masculine and feminine, and as I would strut the fucking runway while I was on a treadmill, empowering myself, Kylie Minogue, thank you for allowing me to access my feminine, masculine self. I love you as a gay icon.
I have been a fan of Kylie Minogue since Locomotion. So come on, baby, do the locomotion with me. You gotta swing your hips now.
Come on, baby,
that is totally giving away my age. But I used to be on the swim team and doing backstrokes to Locomotion. It was like, I loved it. Happy birthday, Kylie.
I've got to get a new job. I have best friends Mike Brooks and Richard Million. I've traveled across the world with them. They are gay boys in their 50s that to this day, gay boys in their 50s that to this day live their younger lives through Kylie and a very heavy dose of Gianni Versace. It's sad. They are so very sad.
Come on,
But
baby,
wait, don't tell them. I confess. I have roped in a few younger men in my day who didn't pay close attention to the Princess of Pop's beautiful lyrics. I could just quote a line or two from I Can't Get You Out of My Head, and they would think I was a poet. I regret nothing. Happy birthday, Kyle.
For your loving is all that I talk about.
The show's ended.
Is it? I'm in Kylie Minogue. That is today's news for the LGBTQ community on the world's first daily LGBTQ evening news show.
Remember, if it's important to the LGBTQ community, it's important to Q News Tonight. But you must help us. Please, click subscribe on YouTube and share this news.
We are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. This is the only source for live LGBTQ news in the world. Your community needs your support, and I need a new job.
You, unless you're Al, you are not alone. You will get through this crisis with us together.
We are here with you. And this is Q News Tonight.
Thank you, America, for joining us. I'm Al Ferguson, and on behalf, this is I Don't Want to Know Anymore, and I
Napoleon
also don't want to know anymore. We'll see you daily at 7 p.m. Good night, America.